Hi there, this is Thomas from Lost Continent Games. Today, I want to talk to you about communicating information. When creating a game, there's a lot of levels of negotiation. There's the negotiation between the vision in your mind and the pieces of art that you have produced. There's the negotiation between the artistic vision and the vision of the individual artist, and the negotiation between what you think the game should be and what the player thinks the game should be. At every one of these levels, it's important that the information is presented clearly though, so that the player can respond to it well. In the case of our most recent dungeon design, there was a lot of negotiation between what the dungeon was on paper and the actual experience of playing through it. Despite feeling that the design and puzzling was clear, creative, and challenging, I just couldn't help but feel that the dungeon was it just felt like a big, empty, frustrating room. But what I came to discover, though, was that the dungeon felt empty simply because there wasn't enough information to show the player on how to interact with the rooms. Take this room for instance. It's actually the beginning of a puzzle section. Before I implemented a solution, it looked like this. It's easy to see that the camera is mostly showing empty space. It's not clear how the player should interact with the puzzle or even where to go. The only option previously was to go forward and hope you land on the right boxes. In order to alleviate this situation, I implemented a new Vista system. This allows us to pan the camera to designated positions when the player makes contact with the collider. The same room from the same position now looks like this. The room hasn't changed at all, purely its presentation has. From here, the player can see 5 interactable elements in the room all at once. The flow of the puzzle and the path to take becomes clearer as the player has to strategize about which boxes to move first, or just exit the room on the left or right. Each piece of the puzzle is within view now. Previously, the lack of information made the puzzle merely impossible to solve, and honestly was plain unfun. Another puzzle later on in the dungeon requires the player to move objects in order to get to the top of the room. The problem here, similar to the other one, was that it took genius level spatial reasoning skills to keep track of where every moving object was, where they needed to be in order to succeed. The solution in this case was also related to cameras and providing information. I decided to add these viewports at certain parts of the room that allow the player to see the room in its entirety. Because it's a room-wide puzzle and the room is huge, it became necessary to show the whole thing to the player so they can keep track of everything. However, since the player doesn't have free access to the whole room at any given time, it still encourages strategizing when viewing the viewport. All of this talk about information we thought about, and we decided to also apply it to the map. And so, we updated to show interactable objects alongside whether or not they've been enabled. And in addition to all of this, a small addition we made for this dungeon specifically was to implement these speed boost arrows on the ground. These were added because we found too much time was spent running in a straight line with nothing happening. These attempt to alleviate that problem. To be honest though, it's just a band-aid solution, and just covers up for a weak design. After designing this dungeon, we've avoided these types of corridors entirely in our future dungeons. But that design choice is a separate discussion entirely. In all, the dungeon feels honestly much more alive than it did at the beginning. Rooms feel more fun to clear and it feels a whole lot less like running around. My original inclination was right. The dungeon's puzzles were engaging and fun to solve. However, I did it a disservice unintentionally, withholding information from the player. In this situation, the solution was actually to make the game's dungeon a bit more like it looked on paper, readable at a glance. One thing we've learned is to always give the player more information than you think they need, because they're sure to be less familiar with the game than you are. Well, that's it for this one. Make sure to check out our socials, and I'll see you all in the next video.